A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Techgig webinar series. The topic for today's session is differentiating products testing. And we have with us today Mr. Manish Poddar. He is the Associate Director, Cognizant Technology Solutions. Manish is a software professional with over 14 years of experience in software testing, currently owning a responsibility of setting up, developing, and growing the testing capabilities in BFS domain products. Prior to being a part of Cognizant, he was privileged to be associated with esteemed organizations such as Scale Consultants Private Limited, Mercedes-Benz India Limited, and SKF Bearings India Limited in Pune. Mechanical engineering graduate and management postgraduate certifications to the credit includes Prince 2, CSTE, and multilingual proficiency. So before I hand over the session to Manish, just a quick roundabout of today's webinar. Manish will be giving the presentation for the first 45 minutes and we will open up the session as usual during the last 15 minutes. Request all the attendees to start sending in questions probably once we are half an hour into the presentation. And also advise everyone if there is any connectivity issue, any problem whatsoever, please drop me a message in the chat window during the session. I now hand over the session to Manish. Manish, I am giving you the presenter's right. You can also unmute yourself, Manish, at this point.
Yeah, sure. So hope, Sridhar, I'm audible.
You are audible, but just check your audio setting once again because it's coming a little faint right now.
Okay.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the introduction and a very warm welcome to the participants to this world of product testing. The topic for today's session is what Sridhar has mentioned as well, is differentiating product testing. The focus that I'm going to keep for the whole next 45 minutes is to give an aspect of how testing can be differentiated when it comes to testing of products. 2 points to mention. My experience has been primarily into BFS domain, banking and financial services domain. Hence, I will probably keep referring to a few of the BFS examples or scenarios. And the point of view that I'm putting across today will be more from a service provider's point of view. I'm sure there would be participants from product organization as well. Probably my point of view would be more from a service provider's organization would be. So I would suggest to translate and infer in the appropriate manner. Yeah. Interestingly, somebody has raised a question on this session also. Is it really different? Is product really different from a testing standpoint? Right. So before I put up my agenda and the content, I would like to pick up one opinion poll just to set the stage. Right. Do you all believe that product testing is different than the testing of custom-built applications? So it's an opinion poll for probably a few seconds, I guess.
Certainly, Manish, I'm going to launch the first opinion poll now, and as I earlier said, the poll question will appear right upon the screen, and I will also share the poll results right after that. So I'm launching the first poll question now.
Sure.
And I also read out the question, do you believe testing of products is different than testing of custom-built applications? We have 3 options, yes, no, or maybe. And let me keep it open for another 10 odd seconds. Okay, I'll close the poll now, and I'm sharing the result right on the screen. Around 71% saying yes, 21% no, and 8% maybe. So that's the result we have received. You can continue with your presentation, Manish. Manish, you are not audible.
Yep. Is it okay now?
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. Sorry, I was actually talking on mute. Sorry. So thanks for this outcome. I think as a group together, we believe testing of products is definitely different and needs a special attention. This also gives me a good direction in terms of to what extent the conversation needs to be modulated. So, just to give you a snapshot of what we will be talking today, while I'm just running through the agenda, but you will realize that we have already started the content as well. So, I just to set the basics clear. Product, essentially, I'm referring to a packaged software, which is commercially off-the-shelf product or package, which we call it typically COTS. Products typically would be developed by vendors for customers in various industries, and customers adopt those, implement those, and retain, maintain those for their business process support. So that's the basis that we will start with. Today there are certain obvious business trends which have shown an inclination of product adoption. So I wanted to give a few snapshots of what business trends are becoming very prominent in the industry today. Obviously, with a special focus on BFS as a domain. So that's the paradigm shift. We will talk a few of the differentiation aspects of product. Product by nature itself has certain characteristics which needs or makes the strategy for testing different. So we'll look through some of the differentiating aspects. As a project managers, as a delivery managers, or as a testing professionals, when you are involved into a product testing project, from an approach standpoint, how a life cycle needs to be looked at. So we'll look at some of the features of that as well. And there are very, very niche strategies which are required for products when it comes to testing, and especially from a service provider standpoint as a company who's providing the testing services. So we'll touch upon some of the strategies as well. And I also wanted to give a little bit of a breadth of the subject in terms of sustenance, where I wanted to give a view of what are the different cornerstones which one as a company needs to focus for setting up such capability of testing products. Products is definitely a very wide subject. While I try covering the breadth at appropriate place, I'll also try getting into depth in a given point that we have at this moment. I would suggest, I think after 30 minutes, you can keep posting the questions. I can see those online, and I can, start addressing as and when those are appropriate without waiting for last minute. We'll anyway cover those last 10 minutes as well. So quickly getting on to the some of the business trends. If you've seen the recent past, right, we've seen the world of client-server technology. We've seen the world of web www, or what you call it, J2E technologies. But in recent past, if you see, the technology pace or the technology change is changing at such a pace that you don't have a time window which is called as the technology-focused time window. The focus from setting a technology has been changing now to more of setting a business-focused technical adoption, where the customers have started focusing, integrating their technology into the business process as much as they can be, and it is becoming more customer-centric than the technology-centric. Very, very key observation or key trend that we have seen in the recent past. Customers like banks have started focusing more and more towards internationalization of their operations. Today we don't call ourselves as a global world, right? We call it ourselves as a local world, wherein you want to be local but at the same time globally local. So it's more of a local world. So banks are trying to be local. They want to exchange currencies across borders. They want to exchange collateral across borders. They want to see a single customer view across borders. same customer experience across regions and borders. So they are focusing more becoming internationalized operation organization than being a large local organization. Similarly, the competition is increasing at such a fast pace today. In fact, I'm sure you would have heard in India as well, corporates are now also been looked at giving some kind of a banking licenses. And RBI is thinking towards that today, which means the competition is getting increased, and it's such a stiff competition. The economic growth is equally at the same time is a little sluggish. So it's a very complex problem statement for our CXOs of bank or such organizations where you have technology integration coming, the business process becoming more internationalized, there is a lot of competition coming in, and at the same time, the growth itself is a little sluggish. So how do you manage the expectations of the market? How do you sustain your business? And that's where there is a remarkable trend that which is seen as adoption of packages, adoption of products. And the whole reason for doing that is, the banks look at how best from a cost standpoint the business process can be delivered to the customer, how best it can meet the customer's expectation, and how fast it can come in a cost, quality, time focus. And it seems products have been able to manage, or products have been able to give this benefit of cost, quality, time to the banks and the larger organizations. And hence the trend of becoming product-dominated business process. And with this, when you see from an IT standpoint as well, IT has started becoming enabled and geared up for managing the expectations of those products which are becoming the prominent parts of your business process. So IT has now started changing their gears as well towards seeing how products behave, what needs to be done from a product maintenance standpoint, how do you upgrade the products, how do you implement the product, how do you maintain it, and finally how do you test as well. So there's a whole lot of paradigm shift happening today, which makes product very predominant in the market today, right? So moving on to the key characteristics, right? Product, as I said, is a business process, or is a pre-built business process in a package. Generally, product vendors try to build a market standard business process based on their market strategy. Let's say a product vendor wants to make a generic product across regions, not very focused to a specific country or a specific region or a specific zone. Or even the product vendor may choose to say my product is very focused for, let's say, Middle East market or very focused for an European market. So, but they would have essentially a pre-built standard, industry standard business process packaged into a product on a very standard data set, which are called as parameters, right? So the aspect of product now will start becoming different and evident for testing life cycle is when it comes to implementation of a product and a testing of an implementation, or when it comes to upgrade of a product and testing of an upgrade of a product, the testing strategy altered for a product-way testing is a key. What do I mean by product-way testing? Testing is testing. We all heard that multiple times. Testing is testing. I test the business process expected. But when it comes to product-way testing, there are certain key elements that needs to be looked at, right? The project managers needs to tweak their strategies for the whole project management itself, the team composition, the life cycle methods and approaches, the solutions which are required, and also needs to keep the governance angle where now in addition to your development partners and testing partners and the customers, the product vendor is also coming into play. So the governance model also needs alteration. So for a differentiation standpoint, and there are a number of such facets which will make, which need to look differently when it comes to products and testing of products. I picked up 6 such facets, just namely, the process, the technology, life cycle gaps, integration and expectations. Definitely those are not the limited list. It's a limited list, not the exhaustive one. But from a time constraint standpoint, we'll at least look at these 6, and let's try getting into little details of these. So let's take the first 2, right? Standard business process and technology. As I said, products would have a pre-built business process. There is already a lot of testing effort has already gone into the product when the product has already been built. So product vendor would have executed the development life cycle of the product and would have already executed testing. Very, very important element to keep in mind. Testing of the product is already been done by product vendor. And now we are talking from a customer standpoint or a bank standpoint where the product is now being implemented. So the out-of-the-box business process of the product is already tested by product vendor. One entry point when you start differentiating product for testing. As I said, the products can be, generic product of the entire end-to-end life cycle. Take an example of some core banking product supporting the whole retail operations, loans, deposits, customer account maintenance, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there are very focused niche products supporting only smaller piece of a life cycle, let's say only trade order management products. The whole trade processing, trade closure, and trade opening, and so on and so forth will happen in parallel with some other set of products or applications. But again, products either can be widespread generic products or products can be small, very niche focused products. Now, how does it matter from a testing point? If a product is generic, there will be lot of customizations or tuning of the product business process for banks will come in play. And that makes the original statement of product being already tested a lot by product vendor defeat a little. Where your confidence on product will slowly a little go down because the product's now getting customized. But at the same time, if it is a smaller business process and adopted as is by banks, the testing of core product itself probably can be eased out a little, right? So the type of the product and the business process built in the product has a bearing on how do you test and what do you test. The products have started making different, vendors have started offering different hosting model. Today you see products which are typical standalone products. There could be some kind of a hosted model. Even the shared service model, like there are banks, there are various products in the market who offer shared service, on-demand service. They would retain the market data. They would offer a market data related influences on demand. There are a lot of shared services also, being offered in the market. The model in which the product is operating or the service on which the product is operating will have a bearing on testing, because if it is a typical standalone product implementation, your just connectivity and the user experience would matter a lot. If it is a hosted model and shared service model, again, the different considerations of security, different consideration of data isolation will come in place, and your testing would have a different strategies to be adopted. Right? From a technology standpoint, if you look at it, when a product has been built, product vendor has to look at least a certain time zone or horizon of certain years to exist that product or sustain that product in the market. So let's assume vendors make a 10 years of time zone to be targeted. They also will have to take care of variety of technology that may come in play from a customer standpoint. Banks would have number of variety of technological environment in their own premises. Right? Some banks will operate on whole IBM stack. Some banks will operate on Linux stack. And they will have their technical needs different. And when they look at choosing a product, they would also look at the kind of technological support that product has. Right? But at the same time, there would be a choice of a product which may not necessarily support a technology, and bank has to undergo a technological transformation. Would have a lot of different angles from a testing standpoint. Right? Simulation of such technical variations would need testing strategies to look at differently. So technology in general has a bearing on on how do you test the product. Let's just move on to the next slide, which talks about life cycle and gaps. Now, if you look at product, typically product would have a very definite life cycle trajectory to follow. It's a 20,000 feet high view. If take a situation where a bank is not operating in certain, they don't have a certain service offering to the market. Let's say they don't offer the core banking services to the customers. Example as a bank, right? They will choose a product which has a core banking process built, and they will look at adopting that. This is a typical situation of implementing a product where the bank doesn't have a service offering in the market, and they're trying to enable that through a product. Or there are a set of applications homegrown, built internally for ages together, maintained together, and they want to basically obsolete them and replace with a new state-of-art product. Replace the same business process of core banking, as an example. So the first life cycle for product would come is the implementation life cycle. Or a product, a bank may choose to implement the same product across different regions and different geographies, primarily to ensure the internal operational consistency or similar operational experience for the customers, which is called as, in a very generic terms, called as rollouts. So they'll look at multi-country rollout or multi-geography rollout. So a single geography implementation to multi-geography implementation is a logical transformation for product implementation lifecycle. A product is implemented, is in place for the banks. The next logical step comes is the upgrade. So there would be vendors coming with new versions of the product, or probably or there could be some kind of a technical change that bank is undergoing, and then the product needs a certain upgrade. Typically, it could be a technology upgrade, or it could be a functional version upgrade, or it could be a functional enrichment. So upgrade is the second or third dominant life cycle phase. And then the maintenance, the regular BAU maintenance, where there could be defects coming in, there could be smaller interface changes required, and so on and so forth. So logically, a life cycle of a product would have either it would be implementation, or it could be multi-geography rollouts, or it could be upgrade for technical or a version or a functional upgrade, or it could be BAU maintenance. And testing for each life cycle is different, right? If I'm testing the whole new implementation for the first time, and bank doesn't have any such experience earlier, focus is more around the core business process of the product, testing for the bank's specific parameters, bank specific configuration. If it is a multi-country geography implementation, the focus of testing shifts towards how do I ensure a consistent testing strategy across different regions? How do I ensure the coverage across different regions? How do I minimize my testing effort by reusability and accurate traceability? So my strategies would change there. If I'm doing an upgrade, essentially, is my older version and a new version behaving in the same pattern if it is just a technological upgrade? And if it is a functional upgrade, testing of older version versus newer version with an additional incremental functionality and testing of the functionality with that, the focus shifts there. Your strategies would vary when you're testing those situations. And if it is a BAU maintenance, very simple example of defects being fixed, and you want to test those defects, plus also regress the whole existing functionality without touching the code. So the lifecycle approaches would, rather testing lifecycle approaches would change based on the lifecycle that product is into right now. Right. Now let's look at gaps. Gaps essentially, as I said, products. A product vendor would try building the standard industry standard business process in the product. They would try packaging that. And again, the bank may have developed or maintained or operating in a certain business process which is very, very tuned to bank, and it may not be the same as what industry has, or it may not be the same that product has, which means product needs to undergo a slight change, which we call it as customization, or bank needs to realign their business process to suit the product. Either of the ways, there will be some gaps, and the first step of implementing product is gap assessment of to what extent product meets the current business process of the bank, and what extent bank needs to change, to what extent product needs to change. And gaps or list of such gap line items is the first starting point for testing of the products, and it is the first scoping document for testing the products. Larger the gaps, more focus towards the customization, more focus towards the functional testing of those customization gaps, and lesser focus towards the functionality of which is core and built. Lesser the gaps, lesser the focus on customization, more the focus on product build for the configuration itself. So the gaps would have a bearing on how the testing focus shifts where is the more regression required, where is more functional test required, where can you automate more because of the repeatability of the nature, where you need to do a manual testing. So gaps would demand that. Gaps would drive the testing strategies towards the optimized approach. Right. The next set of differentiation is integration and customers' expectation. Integration. Now, what do you test in products is you test products integration in the bank's or customers' running business process. How well product gets integrated, which means the integration points. It means the data exchange into upwards and downwards systems. It means the seamless exchange of referential data. Right? So integration again would have a lot of bearing on our testing strategy for products. It could be, there could be some feeds coming in as an input file. There could be some referential data like customer master data. There could be an output system, somewhere a data warehouse is sitting, and this product is expected to push some data into the data warehouse, and some other reports are to be generated. So the integration points of the product in the business process in form of an upward, downward, and interfacing systems is something which needs a specific focus when a testing strategy is built for products. And customer expectations. I think those are the ones which are really something which you can visualize. Typically, banks, as I said, would look for their 10 years next growth strategy. They want to grow in certain way. They would define certain objectives, and they would expect, while choosing a product, that objectives needs to be met. That they would look for the products to be scalable to their user experience needs, their user headcount need, to their technological needs, with their business expansion need, with their cultural needs of the whole bank itself, right? So the alignment of products to their whole global vision and testing of this in the life cycle again would have a very interesting approach to follow. As I said, there could be technical expectation also, meaning the performance expectations. They would look at some kind of a response time. They would look at some kind of concurrent users to be used, and while product vendors commit to certain response time and their performance user, they would always have a caveat of number of users assumption. They would always have a caveat of technology environment in which the product is operating. But bank's environment may not necessarily meet those technical caveats, right? So it is required to test the products and identifying the core processes which will mimic the real-time scenario. At the same time, identify the processes which will also have the intensive user set. So accordingly, your non-functional strategies for testing would vary based on the customer's expectation of from the product from technical angle. And functional angle we would have covered earlier when we're testing the business process, testing the gaps and integration points, and so on and so forth. Over and above, there will be some quality expectations as well. Banks today carry a lot of social status. They would expect some kind of an assessment form to work in. They would expect some quality standards to adopt to, and products would inbuilt would suffice to those quality standards. It could be regulatory requirements of reporting. It could be operating standards. It could be data standards, data models. It could be standard reports required, which are either regulatory or compliant or quality compliant to the standards, industry standards. So those would also have a needs for the bank, and that is really required to test, even though product vendors assures the existence of those quality standards in build, because of the data variations that banks will bring in for the implementation product. So quality of interfacing points, quality of the whole standards, those are required, and would have a different bearing when it is looked at from testing angle. With this base product differentiation, before going into the testing approaches, I would like to put up an opinion poll too, whether for different domains, product do we really see it is testing differently? Maybe Sridhar, if you can help me putting the poll forward.
Certainly, Manish. I'm just going to launch the poll question now. I also read out the question. Do you believe testing of products from different domains is also different and the options remain the same? I'll keep the poll open for another 10 seconds. Okay, and we have the answers. 82% say yes, 8% no, and 10% maybe. Over to you, Manish.
Sure, sure, sure. So I guess definitely even I do agree to the same point. Different domains, product in the different domains would have a different approaches for testing. Banking would actually have a more business process driven testing required for products. In case of a retail industry, typically the payment gateways, the merchant onboarding, the card transactions and retail space would be more dominated, where the hardware testing would be focused for products than the software testing. So even in the life sciences space where the clinical trials are being made, there are certain standard products which maintain the clinical trials. Results of the clinical trials, and the testing of those trials is more focused on the data than the trial life cycle or the reporting life cycle. Or in case of collateral management kind of a products, the content of the document is not really focused. It's focused more on the document maintenance. It's more of a mechanical test than the intelligent test. So definitely the products of different domains would have a further differentiation in their strategy for testing. But principally, the way we looked at products so far, I think the principles of testing for product remains more or less same. The focus will keep shifting based on the domain intensity. Yeah, so that's something which I thought I can share. Moving on to the next slide. While we saw now various product features and their impacts on testing lifecycle or what needs to be differently seen, let us look at now from a project manager's point of view as well, or even the testing professional's view as well, where we are trying to be delivering the testing products and how the delivery lifecycle can change or alter. I'm focusing on primarily more from an angle of bringing the project management domains, and I picked up 4 domains right now, more of process, team, delivery model, and risk management, and we'll look at the alterations in that. But believe me, the rest of the project management domains like communication, and there are a lot of other domains, will also have the varying parts. In the limited time, I think I thought these are the priority ones we can cover. So let's go through these 4 domains and understand the difference in the model. I'm looking at the process and methods first. We heard different strategies. We heard different life cycle stage the product can be in. Implementation, upgrade, and maintenance and BAU support. The testing approaches will be different there as well. We heard that, right? So that typical examples like if it is implementation, the focus is more on functional test. If it is upgrade, the focus is more on like-to-like comparison test or a data comparison test. Even the report validation is a right method to adopt to when it comes to more of a upgrade. So the test strategy, there are methods, there are models, there are processes which needs to be tuned for selection during the life cycle phase, during the planning of a testing life cycle, considering the stage the product is in right now. That's one point which is important to note. Second is the gated life cycle definition. Life cycle remains same. We know we have a standard life cycle of estimation, planning, design, execution, or data creation, execution, reporting, and closure. The life cycle remains same, but the handshake point and the gating of those phases is very, very, very important to focus when you're planning for a product testing. Why? We heard initially there is a new angle of product vendor comes into picture. Let's visualize a simple scenario. As a service provider, you're providing the testing services to a bank. There is a scope of work available for testing the some application which bank is building internally, homegrown application. As a testing as a testing partner, there's a team manager who would start interacting with the bank's either a business point of contact or technology point or IT point of contact. The stakeholders involved are limited. You execute a project and deliver it. For products, there's another angle of product vendor will come in, and the scope of the work for a product vendor will also have an impact on your testing strategy. Typically, product vendors would go away from services business. They would prefer to enrich their own product, build their product capability more and more. So they would not want to get into a lot of services business. They would prefer it to give it to the vendors like the service providers. So one situation you can imagine is product is just doing an implementation. So typical scope of work would include a gap assessment, implement the product, do this minor verification and train and handover. That's one very extreme involvement. Second stage logical progression would be product vendor would also try doing a lot of customization. Today, product vendors are trying to build products with an extensibility kind of layer where without touching the code, you can still customize the product. More of a superficial wrapper on a core product, which is their own IP. So even they would adopt an approach to do a customization of the product, or they would adopt an approach not to do customization, but let it go to some external service providers. Third could be, while they implement it, they would also customize. They can also test it. So based on the involvement of a product vendor, they being one of the key stakeholders in the whole testing delivery life cycle, the handshake points becomes very, very, very critical. How much the product vendor has already tested their product for the bank or for the customer, and the releases of that, or release notes of that, or defect notes of that, or the traceability of it would actually become a very critical input for how much effort you're going to put in as a testing team. I've seen a couple of examples where bank has come and said, guys, you are testing too much. Why are you testing so much when vendor has already tested the product to a certain extent? Why don't you optimize your testing effort? Very classic question put by bank, but at the same time, you being a certifying authority for the product, you can't take chances. So it becomes kind of a negotiated environment. So the involvement, extent of involvement of a product vendor in the governance of testing life cycle is something which has a bearing on where to test, what to test, how to test, when to test, and a due planning for the governance for exchange of your communication, issue management, challenges, defect communication, defect closure, setup instructions. A lot of such assets or a lot of such subjects which needs attention when a product vendor is involved. Equally important is the defect life cycle, right? If product vendor is trying to, you have a defect logged in, if the defect is a pure play base core product defect, definitely it has to go to product vendor to fix it. And if it is routed to your customers, then you can imagine the kind of communication gap it can pose it to. You have multiple channels of communication, multiple steps of communication. So the whole defect management life cycle is also needs to be managed very critically. Probably a tool-based approach would be the best way to go with. But at the same time, forming a triage forums, involving the product vendor on the forum, along with the buy-in from your customers, is equally a good strategy to manage defect, but turn around faster and better and good quality. When it comes to managing, projects, delivery projects by metrics, typically metrics-driven management, standard metrics would still continue to apply. There is no change to metrics, but there are fewer metrics which needs attention, like, to what extent the product is customized, to what extent the reusability of the assets that you have built will come in, especially in case of your multi-geography rollouts, right? So probably in a nutshell, your delivery approach from a process and method standpoint would have a whole lot of alterations in scoping, strategizing, governance, in metrics management, and defect management, and risk assessment, and so on and so forth. And that's the key element. Team formation. Product skills in the market, you will not find that many. As compared to your Java J2 skills or database skills, you'll find thousands of people with the same skill available. But product skills are very, very niche skill specific pertinent by products, product vendors. So those skills are not available in the market. And in that case, as a testing service provider, how do you ensure a sufficiency of the product knowledge which can mimic the real-time business scenario of the customer is one key element to look at. So a well-balanced team of good domain expertise, a good product expertise who is trained on a product, a good technology expertise, and then a good testing expertise, a well-balanced team is something which is a key for the success of a product testing engagement. Technology is also equally important. There are products which has, take an example of end of day batch or beginning of the day batch, BOD and EOD, typically in a bank scenario. That is such a complex process. It goes through different systems, generates different data comparisons, and it's like a whole technological data exchange from one place to other place. Which needs a lot of technology experience as well. And product vendor by virtue would try having those experience, but that they would limit to their own scope of work. So a good, well-balanced team is key to the success of the product. Typical things to watch out for, I just listed few. The kind of training plans maintained from a delivery standpoint, ensuring the continued skill sufficiency of the project, and a kind of knowledge retention for the team is something which is key from a team standpoint. And without a well-balanced and a well-built team, success of the product testing engagements are really at risk. Delivery models, I think we touched to a certain extent in the early conversation as well, as to multi-party environment, product vendors, involvement of a product vendors, making the product vendors accountable for certain things and service providers accountable for certain things. Making the good differentiation of the scope of work and accountability is a challenging task. And when it comes to testing of product, that task needs to be executed efficiently. There is a trend in the market these days, right, where the service providers have started creating some kind of alliances with product vendors. We call it as a tri-party alliance or a three-way alliance, where while for them it is more of a go-to-market together, but for customers it becomes very beneficial. So, for example, if a product vendor A is trying to implement into, say, let's say customer B, and C is the service provider, and A and C has an alliance, they together can actually join hands in the interest of the customer, because for both of them, the customer is customer. You can speed up a lot of testing effort, or in fact the whole life cycle effort itself, or implementation effort itself. But from a testing standpoint itself, you can you can look at testing the early testing of the product in the vendor's environment, product vendor's environment itself, or you can look at fixing the defects in an offline mode without having the tri-party trials all the time. So engaging with partners and creating a healthy multi-party environment again would form a key to success. And certain important question will also be posed by your banks as well is, where do you want to test it? Testing is going to happen in product vendor environment, it's going to happen in your service provider environment, or where would it happen, or will it be in the customer's environment? So choosing the right environmental strategy at the right logical stage is something a key to success of the project for testing. Next slide on risk management. Again, there are a lot of risks you'll go with, right? Implementing a product is a change for a bank. You'll see that take another same example of having couple of applications, homegrown built, supporting the product's business process, and that is to be replaced by a product. It's a whole big change for the bank, and it's not only a technology change; it's also user experience change. The users, there's a lot of resistance that you can expect to come in, and in such an environment, executing a testing project would have very, very specific different challenges. The generic risk identification will always be there. You would have a risk of cost, quality, schedule continue to exist, but there are very product-specific risks which needs to be managed for delivery excellence and product testing. Typically coverage. How much you test. If I have an interfacing application for product in bank's environment, and that interfacing application has been owned by a third party and tested by a third party, to what extent me being the responsible for testing of the product implementation, to what extent I need to test the interfacing product. And there's always a tug of war between the other product owners or the application owners and the testing partners to what extent you can test it. Very, very, very important element to think through. So what extent you can test it. Definitely the governance framework for risk management, even the risk management framework, due communication of risk to all parties involved would have an equal weightage for delivery. Right? Beyond delivery, I just wanted to put some thoughts. It's 3:45, so I have 15 minutes including questions. So I'll quickly start moving forward a little fast. There's another element of strategy that I wanted to bring on here was, let us assume that you're part of a service provider's organization and try to be into the product testing capability for a product. You'll find a number of customer implementations for that product. So there will be a number of engagement that you can foresee for you to come for a testing standpoint. In order to build your own unique proposition, unique selling point for the market, one of the strategies can be, or the service providers have been adopting, is to build the reusable test cases for the product functionalities. Typically, you'll see a product would have, standard process I was saying earlier, which maps to some generic process of the industry. Then there will be some customer-specific business processes, and between that, there will be some regional-specific process as well. So, a good test bed with the reusable assets of or test cases and scenarios of core business process, a region-specific business process, and potentially a generically identified customer process could be, a good testing strategy to start with. And even need not be multiple customers. Right? Same bank, if you want to do a multi-geography implementations, like having a 40-45 implementations across globe, reusability of such assets becomes handy, and you can there's a lot of potential to save efforts and cost in multiple implementations. So if we focus on creating a good solid test platform which has reusable assets, probably automated, would really help making a good testing strategy for products. Right. Just wanted to put up one more opinion poll. Typically, if the situation I explained, right, I can have multiple customers for a product, and those customers can become my potential customer for service providers to test their implementations. And if I have a test bed available with me for core processes, can I really reuse that? You heard of customization, you heard of business-specific data models, you heard of configuration. What do you say? At the same time, the vendors have already built a good solid product. So it's just a dilemma of whether it can be really reused across different engagements. So just look forward for your opinions around that. Sridhar, I'm putting your opinion for 3.
Sure, I'm going to launch the question now. Okay, I will read it out. Do you believe regression testing suite for a core product can be used across, as is for different customer implementations? Okay, I shall close it now and share the response. Around 68% say yes, 23% say no, and 9% say maybe. Over to you, Manish.
Sure. And that's a valid opinion. I think we understood the concept of what I'm trying to say. But as a team, definitely there is a value in considering building of such I'm not able. Sridhar, I'm not sure whether the screen is visible now. Yeah. So there's definitely a value in creating such kind of an asset base, which can be looked at, reused across different implementations, across different engagement as well. There are fewer aspects which are important to keep in mind. Is like one could be the specificity of the customer, their own configuration. One could be the technology change of the customers, another to keep in mind. One could be the technical or the performance expectations. Based on that, your platforms may slightly vary, but by and large, the platform definitely can be used keeping the customizations aside. So yeah, I agree to this point as well. Moving on to the next slide, the sustenance. I think this is a little 10,000 feet height view. As a service provider, where do you focus, and how do you build the competency for product testing? I definitely see this whole space of product testing has a lot of potential in the market because of the whole trend change that I'm seeing, or we are seeing in the market. So it's a worthwhile effort of building the such competency. I put it because there are four cornerstones that I tried bringing on. So when I say product, there are different thousands of products available in the market. So choosing a right product to build a competency, a product vendor which is open for partnerships, which is more relevant in the market, which will stay for longer. It's worth investing effort on it to build the capability. So choosing a right product to build a capability, and then choosing a right service to build a capability for product. Service meaning whether you want to focus on implementation testing, or you want to focus on upgrade testing, or you want to focus on the entire life cycle. So right selection of products and services is one key cornerstone for building the capability. The right operating model, internally today with growing organization size, you would have seen a very complex metrics organization that we are operating into today, internally as well as externally. So building a good, solid operating model that can sustain a long-running success of the deliveries or the project that you execute, and which can sustain the relationships both ways, customer side and product side, is again another element to look at. Operating model meaning the governance, operating model meaning the right people, right team, operating model meaning the right templates and methods and processes available, and all together supports these selected products and selected services in the market. Okay. People in organization, again, we touched on team formation earlier as well. The skills that you carry, how the maintenance of the skill, upgrades the skill. Products, a certain version is available in the product doesn't mean that version will live for the entire life, right? There will be a lot of version upgrades which are happening. So how, if I'm carrying a team of certain number of people or testers for a set of products, am I keeping that team upgraded to the latest version of the products? Another key element. So managing the skills of the product testing team is one more focused element. Equally, the solutions that we build, we heard of those test platform kind of a solution. There could be some spot solutions to be built supportive for testing life cycle. So looking at the solutions, having those, investing enough effort to maintain those solutions will also be an important cornerstone. And all of these together, the right selected product, the right operating model, the right team, right skills and solution, how do you package and get it to the market? The whole sales and marketing efforts will also be equally important to create the right image in the market that you are the capable product testing service provider. That is equally important to the success of your capability. Right. Just another minute or so before to close. The key elements or key critical success factors for the success of this collaborated effort to build a competency. I probably will not go through each one of them, but just to quickly highlight, the management commitment is one which is really critical. Without having a buy-in from the top management to invest on building this capability, it cannot be a successful effort. Another point to mention is also the kind of research and development, right? Choosing the right product needs a good amount of background research choosing a right partner is it needs a good amount of background and research, understand who has the partner, who has a partner model, who's the right partner to make, where there can be conflict of interest in the region, how do you avoid those. So a good amount of research, good research team is equally important. So when you're making your product selection strategies supported by a research output would be a key to success. And an operational excellence, the product testing skills today in the market would be, fetching a little higher billing rates, would be fetching a little higher revenue numbers. But operationally, how do you manage ensuring that the right investment goes back into the skill upgradation, keeping the right profits required for your own organization? So, number of such critical success factors will drive the capability that one can look at. Maybe, in the interest of the time, I would want to stop at this superficial level. Maybe in future we may delve into a little more details. Sridhar, I'm passing back it to you.
Yes,
I'm not
Manish.
seeing any question. Let me look at the questions.
You will be able to view the questions on the questions window.
Yeah, I'm seeing the question. So, what kind of life cycle is preferred for product testing? I assume we're talking about testing life cycle, and as I said, essentially if it is an implementation, typically functional testing is more focused, and in upgrade it's more of comparison testing, more of a like-to-like comparison, or more of report-based verification would be a good strategy to follow. If it is a BAU, more of regression testing, and that too functional focus would be the best approach to adopt to. That's what I think. Is switching domain will affect in career? I think it's probably not a little relevant question for this discussion. How much percentage of testing should be involved in the product development? It's a very, very valid question. So, I think the effort required for implementation and product development are independent set of efforts. It's not like your standard project where you have typically 30 to 40% of your development, 20% of your testing can be seen. That kind of analogy probably may not be able to plot because there are two different entities which will be involved doing testing. So, and product needs to be enriched through and through their newer versions. So, how much percent of testing should be involved for product development? I think it will be almost like 40% plus in their own product development effort, but implementation of effort would be different. So that's little, you need to segregate those questions when you're treating the testing effort. What could be an ideal product testing life cycle that fits for every model? I think there's no ideal process. It will remain to be standard process of your design execution, the planning, design and execution reporting, but it will be molded according to the phase that or life cycle stage that we are into. So there's no standard life cycle for phase of a product. Will using agile testing useful product testing? Definitely. It's a very interesting question. Recently I've seen a number of customers are trying to adopt an agile model for implementation of the product. It's a very interesting trend that we have seen, right? And testing of those products in an agile way is another very, very, very different experience. Keeping those sprints defined with the scope of work, ensuring the user experience is visible, making the right testing strategy, meaning the regression testing strategy for different sprints, progressive sprints, and other model. Yeah, so agile testing is something which I've seen very consistent in the market. I think we should look at adopting those when building some specific strategies. How are the change requests and testing of change requests handle the product testing? Yeah. So BAU is what I was saying, the life cycle phases, the high level phases that I said earlier, implementation, upgrade, and so on and so forth. So BAU is one phase where you will see most of the changes being managed. Testing of changes, it will involve localized focus testing of the change itself, and then the regression of the impacted functionalities through the assembly would be required to look at. Where the important element to see is where the changes on the customized code and the changes on the core product code, where the accountability of fix and accountability of testing will change. So that's something which will be a critical element to look at testing of changes. What is the best life cycle? I think we've heard that. How much we have to rely on automation compared to manual testing for different domains? I think in products, automation is the way. I think there's no second thought to it. 100% focus on automation, making automation regression automated suite is the must for success of product. Irrespective of the domain, products, you'll find a lot of repeatability, most susceptible place for automation. So I think we should go for automation strategy for products. What testing strategy suits to medical products where FDA compliance is applicable? Typically, the testing of medical products in the space of life sciences, the testing is called as validation testing, and those have a lot of FDA compliance requirements. They need to follow a certain documentary standards. I think the strategy would be more not product specific, but more of a compliance specific, where there is a focus on ensuring the compliance, the screenshots of the defects, screenshots of the input-output screens, the whole validation testing requirements. The strategy needs to be more focused towards that, along with the stage of life cycle that product is into right now. So I guess I hope I am able to convey the messages appropriately to the questions raised.
Thank you so much, Manish, for...
Maybe you've covered the questions that was raised so far.
Yeah, we do have a few more questions, but looking at the time, I would request all our attendees to probably take these questions up with you offline. That's all right with you, right?
Sure. No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Manish, for that presentation and, of course, for answering to those questions. I'm pretty sure it added some value to all the attendees who participated today. And we look forward to having you again, probably for webinars along the similar line in near future. Once again, attendees, you can come on techgig.com on Monday afternoon to view the recording of today's session. And please feel free to share feedback, suggestions, any queries or doubt in regards to today's webinar. You can directly write to us. You can also post your queries on our discussion forum, which is www.techgig.com. That will be all. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for taking time out, everyone, and making this a success today. Thanks once again, Manish.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.